Good morning, everyone. I first want to thank you all for getting up so early and joining us. I'm really excited to spend the next 2 hours together with you guys, talking about the latest developments in V-Ray. Then I'm going to talk about Phoenix and the new release version 3.0. And in the second webinar session, I will talk about the V-Ray scans, VR scans, which is our material scanning technology. So, I'm pretty sure that most of you know that we are about to release a new version of V-Ray, which is going to be 3.5 first for 3D Studio Max and then for Maya. And you are probably curious what is going to be included in V-Ray. So this is what the presentation is going to be about, what's to be expected. So first, I'm going to talk about how V-Ray has evolved during all these years, really briefly. Then I'm going to talk about all the features coming in V-Ray and also demonstrating you some of them. The list is quite long, so let's get started. You all know that V-Ray is a renderer with history, and everything started many years ago with V-Ray for 3D Studio Max. And now, more than 15 years later, and of course a lot of hard work, V-Ray is nowadays one of the most used and popular renders out there. It has found its place in each and every industry, starting from the architecture through VFX, product design, automotive, and so on and so forth. I want to show you, based on this chart with features, how V-Ray has evolved during all these years. So I have listed here the key features of V-Ray. First, in the first column, you can see V-Ray 1.5 with all the service packs included. You can see a bunch of features in here. Then V-Ray 2 came out with all the features. We have doubled the amount of features. Then 3.0 came out. We have tripled the amount of features. And since V-Ray 3.0 came out in 2014, so this is 2 years ago, we have released 4 service packs, as you can see in here. And our service packs are not only for bug fixes. You are going to find in there a lot of new features, as you can see, many optimizations, improvements, which will add additional functionality to V-Ray and will make your everyday workflow with V-Ray more efficient. So now we are about to release the 5th one, and this is what I'm going to talk about. And probably one of the best things about our service packs is that they are for free, so they are free upgrades. If you are V-Ray 3 user, you are getting 3.1, 2, 3, 4, and now the 5th service pack for free. So let's take a look. Until now, in order to have interactivity in our rendering, we were using the V-Ray RT in active shade mode, and now you can have interactivity, production rendering in IPR mode. How this works, I want to show this right away. In the V-Ray frame buffer, you are going to see this small icon over here. So from it, you can start the interactive rendering like this. So this is actually the V-Ray production rendering just in the IPR mode. So right now, it looks like the RT because I'm using the progressive rendering. So I can rotate the camera and it will update immediately. So I'm using also here the V-Ray clipper, so I can easily change the clipper, the position of it, and it will update. So I can also go and change the color of the clipper. Let's make it more orange. Here we go. And right now it looks like DRT because I already mentioned it. I'm using the progressive rendering, but it also works with the buckets. So let's go and change the image sampler to bucket. And I'm also changing the GI engines to brute force light cache, which are the default render engines. So let's start again the IPR, and you can see here that I have lowered down here the noise threshold, so I have some noise in here, but you can see that it is interactive. I have now interactive rendering using the production rendering in V-Ray. So really, really cool stuff to have. So now you don't need to worry if your RT rendering will look exactly the same like the production, because it is now the production rendering, just interactive. You can also from here start and refresh the rendering if it's needed. So this is the icon for refreshing it. Let's move on to the next feature. And this is the V-Ray resumable rendering. Probably most of you know that Chaos Group has community-driven development. What I mean by that is that we always listen what our users want, what they need, and when many people want the same thing, mostly sooner or later it is integrated in V-Ray. This is the case with the V-Ray resumable rendering. And the resumable rendering is the ability to have incomplete renders resume where they left off. So, for example, if I render an image and I have already rendered an hour, but I decide that I need the render power for something else, now I can pause the rendering and then start it from this current point where I have stopped it. So in order to show you this, I'm going to jump back in here in my scene, and let me show you how you can enable the resumable rendering. First, I'm going to lower down a little bit the noise threshold. Then you can enable the resumable rendering from here. This is the first step. And then I just need to tell V-Ray where to save the already rendered information. So I'm typing test2 in my case and save. Now if I click on the render button, V-Ray will start with the rendering. First the light cache will be calculated. And now if I decide that I want to stop the rendering, I can do so. Then when I decide to resume it again, to start it again, it will start from this particular point where I have stopped it. And I can do it again. Stop, start. And this is pretty nice. Also, by the way, you have here this progress bar where you can see the progress of your rendering. And as you can see, the light cache is also included in this file, so the light cache won't be calculated again. And of course, it works also with the progressive rendering. So if I change here to progressive, you see that now I can set also autosave interval in minutes. I will let this to 0. This is the default value. Let's clean up the rendering so you can see it better. So render. Again, the light cache will be the first which is going to be calculated, and this is now the actual rendering. I can stop it and start it again from this particular point where I have stopped the rendering. Why this can be useful? Many reasons. The first one I have already mentioned: when people decide they want to pause it by themselves, or also to avoid, for example, data loss when a power failure happens, or when suddenly our computer run out of RAM. It can also happen. Then the rendered image will be saved until this point, so all the information will be there for you available, so you can continuing with the rendering process. So this can change your workflow and the choices you make while rendering. Also, if you are interested in this particular feature, my colleagues from the labs.chaosgroup.com, this is the website where you can find an article about this particular feature and about the next ones. For example, this is the link for the adaptive lights, which is another cool feature coming with 3.5 in V-Ray. And what is all this about? Well, you all know that when we have a scene with many lights, let's see more than 50 or so, then the renderer will, the ray tracer will need some more time to sample the scene. So we are all aware of that fact, and in V-Ray 3.0 we have introduced a feature called probabilistic lights. So for every ray we hit, we randomly pick a small fixed number of lights, and the default value is 16. And this speeds up the rendering quite a lot. But sometimes it may reproduce additional noise to our image, which we need additional time to clean up. So now in V-Ray 3.5 we are going to introduce the adaptive lights, which is built on top of the probabilistic lights method. So it is smarter. It is smarter by choosing the lights for evaluation. So the adaptive lights are first smarter, then you're going to get better results, so no noise. And last but not least, it's even faster than the probabilistic lights. So for example, with adaptive lights turned on, we can have up to 3 times faster rendering than with the adaptive lights turned off. So if you're interested in more tests about the feature, you can visit our labs.chaosgroup.com website, where you can read a little bit more about that particular feature. The next thing which is going to be included in the new version of V-Ray 3.5 is the all surface material, which is going to be integrated as a V-Ray native shader. And this is again a good example of something which really many people wanted for some time. So we have decided to implement it in V-Ray. What is all this about? Well, there is this guy called Anders Langlands, and he's a VFX supervisor, I think, in Weta Digital right now. He wrote a series of shaders for Arnold, and they became really popular, especially the all surface shader, because with it you can create really nice and realistic looking skin materials. And yeah, so since this is an open source shader, people wanted it in V-Ray, so now it is also integrated, so you're going to get this material as a V-Ray native one. In order to show you how it looks like, I'm going just to create one. So from V-Ray, it's the second one, V-Ray all surface material. This material is like a Uber shader, is all-purpose shader. That means that you can create different kind of materials with a different kind of shaders. So you have diffuse component, you have subsurface scatter component, 3 different layers of subsurface scatter, and also in addition 2 reflection layers. So Yeah, and again, if you're interested in that, there is an article, this is the link for it, where you can see also some tests using the new shader. So guys, nowadays the virtual reality is something very trendy, very popular. Many people, many artists use it for presenting for showing their work, their interiors, exteriors, etc. And it always has this wow feeling in the viewer when the viewer put the headset and feels like he or she is inside this the room, for example. And until now, in order to preview your images, we needed to render the whole image and load it after that. And if some changes are needed, and most of the time there are always some test renders, then changes are done, then again test renders until we are happy with the result and render the final resolution and quality. All this back and forth can cost some time. So now we are introducing the live connection between the V-Ray RT and the Oculus Rift and the HTC Vive. That means that while the RT is running, you can make your changes in 3ds Max, and you can preview this on, for example, in this case, at the Oculus Rift. So this is here the example for that. The RT is running, it's rendering a cube map, and meanwhile I can go and take a look what's behind me, see how the light feels. If I'm not happy with that, I can simply go change it, change some materials, whatever I want. And yeah, so really useful feature, which will save a lot of time. Oh, by the way, this video you can find also in our on YouTube, so if you want to see it again, you can do so. So let's move on. V-Ray frame buffer improvements. The V-Ray frame buffer is really powerful too. You can make many color corrections in there. You have the history, the lens effects, and now you have the opportunity actually to select objects directly from the frame buffer. You can also select the materials of those objects again from the frame buffer. We can set the focus distance in there and change the resolution without any need to stop the active shade session. In order to show you this, I'm going to open another scene. It's this one in here, because I want to have a little bit more depth of field effects in it. So guys, now if I go and click on the right mouse button, you will see here additional menus. For example, I can select the object directly from the frame buffer. So just by clicking, and here we go, I have selected the chocolate behind. If I want to select the coffee beans, I just need to go and select them. Or I can select this here, so let's do so. And even better is that you can select the material of this particular object only by clicking in the frame buffer. So this will open for me automatically the material editor. So get object material, and here we go. Now I can see the material for this particular object, or I want to see the chocolate material. So here we go. Really simple, just by clicking over the object. So another very cool thing is that now interactively you can set the focus of your image. So for now, in focus is this part of my image, but let's say that I want to see sharp the back chocolate in here. So the only thing I need to do is again right mouse click and say set focus distance, click in there, and this is everything. It's very simple and interactive. If I decide to see sharp the beans in the front, the coffee beans in the front, I just need to click in here, and there we go. So the last thing what I want to show you for that will be that without any need to stop the rendering, you can set your resolution. So now I can type here 1200, and here we go. And I can increase also the pixels in the height, like so. And this is how it goes, really simple and easy. So I'm going now to stop the rendering and move on with the presentation. And I'm going to talk about the GPU improvements. So nowadays, more and more people want to render on their graphic cards, and this is because the GPU became a really powerful rendering tool. And of course, people want to have the features available in V-Ray to be supported on the GPU as well. And you know that the V-Ray GPU is quite a different render engine, so it requires additional development. But our GPU team, they really do a great job by adding constantly new features in the GPU rendering. And with each and every service pack, if you go and open the changelog for that, you're going to see a bunch of improvements and a bunch of new features supported on the GPU. And this is the case in 3.5 again. And I have listed here just a few from the GPU improvements because they are really a lot. Like now you're going to be able to render aerial perspective on the GPU. We are going to support the V-Ray stochastic flakes material, support for velocity render element. You're going to have also the V-Ray atmosphere render element, support for the additive mode on the V-Ray blend material. Less CPU and GPU memory usage will be needed when rendering scenes with many textures. And there is also this option called low GPU thread priority, which means if you have just one single graphic card in your machine and you want to use it for rendering, the viewport may get sluggish, and this is because we are telling to the GPU first to render, then to show us the updates. And when the GPU do two things at the same time, yeah, you know what happens. So there is this option called low GPU thread priority, which will help you a little bit with that if you do not have a second graphic card only for rendering. And yeah, more coming. So you see the list is really long of the GPU improvements. So V-Ray scene. I don't know if there are some of you who have tried this feature. It was implemented in V-Ray for Maya. And in this webinar, I was talking, and I am still talking about V-Ray 3.5 for Maya and for 3 Studio Max. So the improvements and the new features are going to be pretty much the same in V-Ray. So the V-Ray scene is actually the ability to import a whole scene as one single object in Maya. Now is going to be available also for Max by having all the materials, of course the geometry with the materials and the lights. You know that many studios, they have mixed pipeline. That means that some of the users are better, some of the people are better in creating scenes in 3 Studio Max, others are better in doing this in Maya. So if I tell to my colleague, hey, can you please give me this particular scene because I need this asset to be integrated in my scene, and he's using 3D Studio Max, I'm using Maya, then the workflow was to export the geometry, then to export the shaders, and this can happen with the V-Ray matte materials, which we introduced in V-Ray 3. But then I couldn't have the exact lighting. So now having the V-Ray scene as one single object, he can export his scene and I can export it as one single object in Maya, and it will render the same. So the shaders are going to be the same, the lights are going to be the same. And of course, people want to have more control over the whole thing. For now, you could just enable and disable the lighting. Now in Maya, you're going to have custom node overrides, so you can exclude, for example, with some scripting, an object from the rendering. And in 3D Studio Max, we are planning to have the same features, so to be to be possible to import a whole V-Ray scene. Last but not least, we are about to introduce our online licensing with V-Ray 3.5 for Maya and for Max. It already works with V-Ray for Revit, V-Ray for Model. What is this about and why we have decided to change stuff a little? Well, until now, those of you who already have V-Ray, you know that in order to license V-Ray, you needed the dongle for that. But what about if you decide to work at home and your dongle is at the office? So yeah, we basically needed to go to the office, take the dongle and work at home, which is not the best way to go. So now you're going to have your licenses online, so available for you at any time, whenever you want and wherever you need them. That means that if I decide to work at home and the dongle is at the office, I just can log in with my account and the licenses are going to be available for me in there. So, guys, this was everything about, not everything, but probably the key features which you can expect in V-Ray 3.5. We are about to move on with Phoenix, so I don't know if you have any questions about that. We can answer them now, or you can just type them in the chat, so I can answer them at the end of the session. I'm just switching the presentations. And we are moving on with Phoenix. So guys, you have probably heard that we have launched V-Ray, sorry, I'm still talking about V-Ray, no, Phoenix FD 3.0. For 3D Studio Max, it's already launched. And we are about to release also Phoenix FD 3.0 for Maya pretty soon. So the features are going to be pretty much the same. So I'm going to talk about and showing you stuff in 3D Studio Max, but you can expect same features coming very soon in Maya. So this is the overview, what I'm going to talk about, and also the key features in V-Ray, or in Phoenix, sorry. This is when I mix presentations. So we have added the new flip solver, and it will allow you to simulate realistic looking liquid simulations easier, like never before in Phoenix. Then we have improved our fire and smoke solver. We have added a quick presets, which is something really great and very powerful. So even people who are totally new to Phoenix, they are going to be able to create simulations like explosions, fire, waterfalls, ocean simulations, and a couple of others. Then we have added some new forces for more control in the simulations and creating more interesting simulations. Then something done for the very first time in 3D Studio Max is the accurate viewport preview, where you can see your simulations actually without the need to render it in the viewport. And last but not least, we have speeded up the rendering with Phoenix 3.0 in comparison with the previous version. So guys, before Phoenix used the so-called grid simulator or grid solver to simulate both fire and liquids. And in most cases, it worked fine, but by having a very complex liquid simulations, like this one, for example, or that one, we were getting some artifacts, and you can see here, jagged edges. This is something unwanted, and to catch this, to avoid this, we were using smooth modifiers on top of that. The problem with that was that we were losing some of the detail of the simulation. Why this happened like this? I will try to explain you based on this short animation. Previously, we were using the grid for advecting data, when we were advecting data, actual data through that grid. Now what we do, we are advecting the actual particles through that grid. So when the mesh goes on top of it, we are going to get really nice and smooth simulations like this one. So the new flip solver, with the new flip solver, you're going to create realistic liquid simulations, and for this case, I'm using for my image here a render from Machivision, and this is Game of Thrones. They have used Phoenix to simulate here the small waves of the ship. So this here is the viewport preview of the flip solver, and you can see it's a very accurate one, so I can imagine how my simulation will look like rendered. The blue particles are representing the water. Then we have here splash, mist, and foam. And the red particles are also something new, and this is they represent the wet map. Now the wet map can be activated with one single click under the dynamic rollout. And in this short video, I want to demonstrate you how easy it is to create waves, like in this case beach waves, with the new wave force in combination with the Phoenix texture. By the way, those videos you're going to see in my presentation, they're available on our YouTube channel, so if you want, you can go and check them out. Yeah, and this is here the viewport preview, and the foam is also generated out of the box. You saw how this goes just by enabling it and setting it with a few clicks. In addition, you're getting white water, wet map, reflection and refraction render elements, so you can make some adjustments in the composting if needed, of course. So what are the advantages of having the flip solver? First, no grid artifacts are going to be visible or there at all. So we won't lose any of the volume. We are keeping the detail of our simulation. Previously, it was a challenge to create a thin liquid sheets. Now it's not anymore, and you are getting also very natural foam patterns you saw out of the box. So we have also improved our fire and smoke solver. So previously, after a certain time, we were losing some of the detail of our simulation, and to get the detail back we were having this workaround with increasing the resolution. Now this is not needed anymore. So in order to show you what I mean, here you can see Phoenix FD 2.2, and this is when I'm losing the details of the simulation. So in Phoenix 3.0, thanks to the improved vorticity, I'm keeping the detail and the shape of the smoke. Here you can see the same thing but in motion. So this is here the volcano. As I mentioned, those videos are available in YouTube show, so you can see them once again if you want. And we are also about to release some tutorials for Phoenix very soon on YouTube. So the advantages, thanks to the improved vorticity, we are having better behavior of the smoke and more details. And in addition, you're going to get also these modifiers for the source in order to get more control over your simulation. So the quick presets, for me, this is the highlight of the release. So the first thing, what we have, what you're going to see after installing Phoenix FD 3.0 will be the new added toolbar of Phoenix. In here, you're going to find the most used objects for Phoenix. You can start, pause, stop, and delete the caches. And in here you can see a bunch of presets. Presets for fire, explosions, smoke, cigarette, candle, beer, honey, blue splashes, ocean, waterfall. And this is how those presets looks like rendered. And we haven't done any changes to the presets. We just change a little bit the lighting for them. They are going to look the same when you simulate them. And so as I mentioned, now even people who are totally new to Phoenix, they can simulate different things like for example, explosion, or let me show you how this goes, just with 2 single clicks, selecting the object, selecting the preset, okay, 3 clicks, and then playing the simulation. This is how it goes. Also, it is pretty cool for people who are new to Phoenix because they can really learn very fast. Which parameter need I tweak in order to get this result? And also for experts who know how things goes in Phoenix, they won't start now from scratch when they want, for example, an explosion. I won't start from scratch. I will start with the preset and then work further until and tweak the simulation until I'm happy with the result. So the quick presets, the advantages of having them. It is one-click solution, and you saw how this goes. This will speed up the process quite a lot, and for me, they look quite good. So we have added also some new forces. For example, the path follow. Using it, you can create more interesting simulations. For example, if I now go and attach here the smoke to this spline, so it follows the spline, I can do so using the path follow, and this is here the rendered version. Of course, those are basic examples, but still you can see what the feature do. So then body force, using the body force, I can create from each and every object filled with liquid, I can transform it into another. In this case, all those spheres are becoming the Phoenix, are going into the Phoenix logo. So then the advantages of having the new forces, easy to set up, and they give you more control. All right, so this is, as I mentioned, something done for the very first time in 3D Studio Max. And let me show you what I mean to have an accurate viewport preview. Just by going in the preview and enabling the GPU preview, you can see how your simulation will look like. It also interacts with your lighting. So if I change the lighting, you see how the simulation looks like. So very nice thing to have. It will save you some time. And as I mentioned, last but not least, faster volume rendering. So here I have done the test by rendering this Phoenix. This is here Phoenix 2.2, and here this is Phoenix 3.0. And it is the same scene. It is the same scene, the same settings. Here with Phoenix 3.0, it took about 2 minutes and 24 seconds, while this one needed one additional minute. So 1 minute more for rendering the same image. So guys, here are coming the good news for those of you who already have Phoenix 2. The upgrade is for free. So if you haven't upgraded yet, go on our website and do so. Download the build and have fun. For those of you who are interested in having or trying Phoenix, I'm pretty sure that you can very easily start working with Phoenix thanks to the new presets we have added. So I hope that you are going to have fun using the new version of Phoenix, which is 3.0, available for 3D Studio Max, and very soon it will be available also for Maya.